good. En 5, 4, 2, 3, 1. Vamos. Oye, gente, ¿cómo estás? En
Hola,
Lima, Perú. Dale, podemos. Todo bien. ¿Cómo estás, Piero? Piero para Congreso este año. Dame,
that's right.
cuéntame,
Uh,
mi amigo.
well, we are very, very excited. As you know, Lanson, we're right in the entering the last week of the presidential elections 2021. That's the 200th birthday of Peru. You guys celebrated your 200 birthdays a while ago, last century. We took a little bit longer to get our independence, but surely we are celebrating the 200th anniversary this year. It's a very, very challenging year, but as you know very well, you know that Peruvians, like Americans, we never lose our optimism, and so we're very excited because I think my party, Alianza para el Progreso, is doing very, very well. We are the party that has been more in touch with the people physically. It's been difficult because of the social distancing, but we've managed to do it respecting the protocols. And I've been walking the whole of the Lima districts from day to night, from Monday to Sunday, and I'm very moved and impressed by the resilience and the optimism of our people here in Lima and doubtless everywhere in Peru. As you know, I am candidate for the Lima Metropolitana City. That's my letter and my number. And certainly we are expecting great results, and we'll see what happens. But we have the confidence of a well done job that we are doing, and that's fantastic for democracy, and we believe that we have got a few ideas that are going to greatly push us forward and past this COVID situation. We're a bit behind, but if we get the confidence of the people, the trust of the people, I think we are going to recover lost time. And how are you doing, Lanson?
That's great, Piero. Congratulations on all the success. It's coming up, right? April 11th, right? So we're
April
only a
11th, that's right.
few days away for the big day, the big D Day. And I'm happy for you. Yeah, everything's going great. It's a very beautiful day in Lima, Peru. Very sunny. I'll show the viewers here just to see outside real quick. Look how amazing that looks, right? Beautiful
Yeah.
blue sky. That's fantastic. I mean, you really, this is a cherished day. Like I'm relaxing today because as Limeños, we don't get that often, right? So we have to take advantage of the day. So I'll be doing a barbecue later this afternoon. I'd love to have you guys over, but with COVID, this situation, the police was checking people on the street with IDs, just,
We're going to have
shopping.
we
Yeah.
can have a virtual barbecue
Yeah,
with
fiesta,
you.
virtual fiesta. See, exactly.
Exactly.
So we could do that. So
We
everything's
can do
going
that.
well overall. We love Peru here. We actually are going to be here for a few more years. So we
Oh,
enjoy
that's
that.
great news.
Yeah,
That's
yes.
really great news.
We're extending our I guess our contracts and working all that out. So that's some new news for you to have. And I'm not going anywhere for a little while.
That's fantastic, man. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so we can go to the jungle and build some boats and do it all, And in addition to that, I'm excited for Peru. I think Peru can come back strong, with everything that's going on.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see candidates like yourself that are super smart, intelligent, and it's a different mold.
Well, thanks
I've
for
been
that.
watching some of the news, the noticias, as of late, and seeing the candidates. Now in Peru, there's more than two parties, right? How many parties are there specifically?
In Peru, there are, if I'm not counted badly, in Peru there are 18 presidential candidates, and each one is running by law for a different, party. And so there are 18 parties approved, and each one of them has a list of candidates for Congress as well. And therefore, there are just about over 3,000 candidates for Congress.
Wow.
I believe there's going to be also simultaneously regional government elections, and therefore there's a lot of things at stake as far as the political power base of Peru is concerned, and so these are very important elections. Of course, everybody says the same thing every time a new election is coming up. But I hope everybody realizes that this time is no, just rhetoric. We're really living testing times, exciting times from the point of view of, change, social change, cultural change, socioeconomic change, etc., etc. And so it's important to participate in setting new rules of the game, looking forward, for Peru and for the Americas. And of course, in your country, in the United States, a lot of things are happening which are very, very important. And I think for us in Peru, we always look up to America for inspiration, and I believe that what we are getting from the US right now is that you really can manage this pandemic, because I think you guys are, beyond the most critical stages now, and people are sort of getting their lives back and coming back strongly. And we hope to follow that path quite quickly. I mean, I hope, and I know everybody in my party feels the same. And
so when you campaign now,
feel the same.
what are the themes? What are the top three themes that are the focal points in terms of what you're trying to convey to your potential constituents?
Is to reactivate the country. Yeah, it's not just economics. Economic reactivation, reactivate, I don't know, maybe it's a bad translation, but we have to reinvent, refuel, come back,
reignite,
and reignite. And basically, we have a reactivation plan, which is the main proposal I'm giving to the electorate, which has got three points. One is that a cash injection for 1 year in many states in the USA, because we have reactivated the supply side. We gave money to the companies so they don't go bankrupt, but now we have to give a little bit money, put some money on the pockets of the people, because otherwise the goods and services that we produce, nobody's going to buy, and depression is going to come in. So it's a standard Keynesian economics plan, supply side, and now is the demand side. So we're offering demand side 1 year of cash injection for food subsistence needs. Secondly, we plan to renegotiate the debts of the small companies, which are 5 million in Peru and are the backbone of the economy and the employment. So they have debts now that they need to have a grace period extended 2 years. And the central part of the proposal is my entrepreneurial law of entrepreneurship, which is the first time we will have such a law in Peru. And all the neighboring countries, including Ecuador, have passed such law. Spain passed it in January this year, Ecuador on February. The idea is to reactivate the economy through entrepreneurship, because those are the big employment generators, the small micro companies. And in Peru, we have many, many of them. But we plan with our law to give them a way to formalize their companies very quickly, just in the website, just put in their own data in just one morning. They get automatically formalized, so they can get digitalization, digital technology courses for free, so they can put their companies in the web, in the digital platforms, and they get also entrepreneurship crowdfunding financing, which is new in our country, and also incubators. We plan to network and to link the network of incubators that we have in Lima with all the other cities, and so that people can start their entrepreneurship prototypes with 3 years of tax exemptions, which is the same they have in countries like US or Europe, and especially US. Europe is not so good for entrepreneurship, but Mexico and Chile and Argentina and Brazil, they have made big inroads in this.
Piero, are you there? Check, check, 1, 2. We might have lost Piero, but what he's saying is about entrepreneurship. It's super important with respect to, today and tomorrow and the future of Peru. Overall, I agree with most of those points. I think it's nice to adopt, what works in other countries. I think incentivizing entrepreneurs for no taxes is the right thing to do. And we're going to see it real time. So, yeah, let's see if he rejoins into our live chat. But I think overall, he's got some great points. It's nice to see that. I'd like to see a little bit more globalization, connecting with other countries, and also being aware of malicious countries like China. And there's a big presence here in Peru, and it's not good. Check, check. Piero Morosini.
We're back in.
We're back in. So just to give you a quick little
back
debrief,
in.
let me give you a quick debrief on what you just said, right? So the big thing is, it's not an economic traditional, I think you used the old Keynesian persuasion of economics. But that being said, there's different styles, right? I think a good thing that you're aligning to is more of the club convergence style of economics, where if countries understand that they need a certain skill set, they adopt what works in other maybe more developed countries. And that's what's called club convergence, where if they decide to do something similar, then they'll get accepted into the club. If they don't ever work on that skill set, unfortunately, they don't get accepted and they just stay undeveloped for a long time. Sounds like Peru is now understanding what works in other countries and adopting those policies. So you being reactivation or reigniting, the last thing you talked about was really interesting about entrepreneurship and adopting some of the tax incentives that, even in Puerto Rico, they have that tax incentive for startups. So Argentina, Chile, yeah, you think about big companies, right? Let's think about Mercado Libre, right? Argentinian, fantastic company. They're on the US stock exchange and they've done it and they've made it happen. let's see a Peruvian Mercado Libre or something, right? Let's see that kind of, not to say you copy and paste the same business model. What I'm trying to say is we need to see a star come out of Peru, and you're gonna reignite that catalyst, right, through your campaign, your platform. Additionally, it sounded to me that also with respect to the cash in the pockets, I think that's all great. Peru has a great balance sheet. I think maybe even better than Chile. So yeah, I think a year's worth of cash just to keep people's morale up. And it's not been easy. I don't agree at all what's going on with stimulus in the U.S. I think it's a waste of money, and it's going to kick the can down the road. It's going to kill me in terms of a young investor, and they literally have destroyed the investment incentives that I've worked on in terms of what I've created thus far in my portfolio. But also, they're doing so much more damage than they can. But in Peru, with the balance sheet that you guys have, that we have, because I live here, it's fantastic. And so if you're eventually going to be fiscally responsible or monetarily responsible with even the bank loans you're talking about, so where you maybe defer them, or maybe you have a lower interest rate, right? So it's a little easier for them to not have to pay so much in interest over the next few years. Fantastic. And that's all good. I think what you left out, what I didn't hear, was maybe the globalization effect, right? And just being aware of some of the players that could manipulate the country, take advantage of the resources with an opportune time. So one of them is China, right? China, we know China's here. They've done a lot for Peru. They want to play, the game of go, right? Where they surround the U.S. from South America, Africa, Middle East with Iran. And I'm afraid Peru may be manipulated by them because of cheap COVID tests or whatever, vaccines, in addition to just money, right? They come with bags of money and say, hey, we want to be your partner. And unfortunately, they don't know how to do business like the US does business. It's a completely different culture, and it is dragons and cowboys. And unfortunately, if you're going to adopt policies that obviously work for the US, say, for example, these entrepreneurship tax incentives or what have you, then you want to work in a world that's meritocracy is the, is the decision maker, meaning your merit, your performance is what gets you to the top, and not controlled by, a dictatorship, if you will. And China will have you at the balls if they essentially are going to buy you out through, whatever. So I'd like to see more of, right now, I mean, I think it's fantastic you're focusing on the internal side of things, but because of COVID and the virtual aspect of things, it would be interesting to see when you're in Congress, and when you're actually working projects and legislation, how does the global relationship look in terms of strategy there? Because there can be some really interesting plays where Peru is leveraging a lot of the natural resources with exporting. Copper is a big thing, right? You've got, I think Pan American Silver, right, is one of the big companies that is out of here in Peru, and they're fantastic. And so you've got silver, copper, a lot of these great minerals that are very in demand now with electric vehicles or whatever. So there's quite a few things that could be leveraged for the benefit of the world globally, right? That are all these new initiatives. So I'd like to see Peru as a global player in some layer of a bigger, initiative. And so I'm curious on your thoughts on how that would look with your organization. We might have another technical difficulty. Sound like you're listening.
Yeah.
Check. We're good. Okay.
You hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, yeah. That's a big game you're talking about, right? It's like it's a completely different arena that you are proposing, because my proposal to the Congress is the startup law, and we believe we can pass it and we can win with it. Now you're talking about this. It's a big game. on the
Well, I would say this. I think
19th
I think
century. Yeah.
your law is fantastic, and it's a clear base hit.
Thanks, man.
Clear base hit. Okay.
Yeah,
So with
I believe that, and
that will
I
hopefully
hope.
get you into the Congress. When you're there,
Yeah, hopefully.
what's the home run? What's gonna make PIERO stand out, type thing.
Well, I think that's the home run is to reactivate the family economies and to be able to formalize 5 million entrepreneurs, because if they are formal, they can get credit, they can get modern financing and technology and upgrade themselves continuously. Now, this whole thing about you're talking about the globalization thing, yeah, it's something we have to reflect, because I have been thinking and reflecting about that, and there's obviously an intensification of the of a very ferocious battle right now for world domination, and you've got the usual suspects there fighting, and the Chinese are making big inroads in Latin America, and myopic U.S. policies are partly to blame, but I thought that the Trump years were not bad for counterattacking the position of the Chinese in Latin America. I'm referring particularly to the new economic treaty between Mexico and the USA, which I believe was a big step forward, because it sort of countered the Chinese penetration in the in very crucial industries, which now the Mexicans are really the big partners of the US on those industries, and automotive is the one that comes to mind immediately, right? Now, I do believe that the time is ready for a new, a more creative diplomacy between the United States and Latin American chief economies. And I hope that Peru is amongst them and is part of that conversation. Now, that conversation has not been started yet because it's been tactical. The past 4 or 5 years have been tactical. What do we respond to Venezuela? I'm talking from this United States standpoints, what do we do with the populist governments of Brazil, the Lula factor, the Peronist governments in Argentina, etc., etc. But I believe that it's needed more statesmanship to get things to a different level. And I miss, for example, some of the statesmanship that the US showed in treating the Middle East problems, which are much far away. I think we need that also in Latin America, because the time is ripe, I think, for that type of thing. In other words, we need to have a new kind of alliance, which is not just, an alliance for the short term, political friends and that sort of thing that has been the past 50 years of US Latin American relations. But I would like to see more of an alliance, a true alliance, right? Something like two sides coming together on one comprehensive platform that makes sense. Integration of economic and social and maybe even cultural dimensions, and do it in a platform that is kind of irreversible. That would be, if I was in the shoes of the US, that would be something I would push forward, because I think that many countries in the area like Peru, Colombia, Mexico, Chile, and maybe even Brazil would be happy to jump into that sort of platform. Because if you don't do that, then the whole thing stays the way it is right now, where Latin American economies are not quite integrated. They are not going in the same direction. And that benefits a new player like China. It benefits them. I would think so.
Where do you think
Because
would
China,
be where would you think name one area of interest that the US and Peru could play together that would just be an easy sandbox project that shows that, hey, there's some collaboration, there's some reigniting or reactivation of the relationship? What is the area of interest that you think makes sense in the near term?
well, I think for this particular idea, I think we need a lot of help in getting our basic services. Our basic services. I'm talking water. I'm talking clear water. In Peru, if you take out the whole bullshit out of the picture, because the professional politicians are just bullshit. And you know, I am not a professional politician, and I don't want to be. And I am a citizen politician. And if you are a citizen politician, you know that the big problem of Peruvians is water. That you open your, and you have got water flowing, which you can drink. And then you have your bathroom, and you can do what you do in your bathroom, and things work. So that we need. That's very basic. You live in Peru now, and you know that's the basic need.
How can you have, give me an example of the average Peruvian, what they're seeing?
The average Peruvian lives in a place which he has invaded. So he has come from some other place and has gone close to a city looking for, like the think about the march to the west, like 19th century United States. They all went to the west. Same thing here.
Yeah.
There are no Indians, there are no shootings, no horses, but it's the same thing otherwise. So they all go looking for land and opportunity, and they go close to gold, which gold in this case is the big city. And so they put themselves, their houses, in places where nobody lives, desert. They create a city there, but they don't have water, they don't have electricity, they don't have nothing. They just have the land over which they have built their houses. Now they are even good houses, nothing wrong with that. But then they have to put everything themselves. They get trucks with water, and they put the water in tanks, and they do what they can do in a communal basis with that. And that's 70% of Peruvians who live like that. Even, you take, as you know very well, and the people who are watching us, they don't know, but you do know, from your house, nice house, my house, nice house, we can take a taxi or even a combi, and in less than half an hour, we are in a place like that. No water.
Yeah, I just look out the window of our places, and I just can see from my eye the hill covered with those type of homes, right? So
yeah, the funny thing is people say this is a poor man problem, and it's not.
No, it's an average man problem.
It's an average man problem, because it's my problem. Look, it's my problem. I don't have the needs of the poor man.
Yeah.
I'm not rich either. But I have a little house, little apartment in the beach, as you know.
Yeah.
You haven't been there yet, but I keep inviting.
We'll go for sure.
Yeah. It's 108 kilometers south of your house. 108. No water, no light. So to have light in this condominium, which is kind of luxury condominium, we have to take with our own money to take a big wire from the last place where they have electricity, and this guy is subletting us the electricity. So he pays 100 soles to the company and he charges us 300. He makes big money. And we have very expensive electricity in the beach. And the water is a tank. Same thing. Same thing as the poor people. So it's not a problem of the poor guys in Peru.
What you're saying, so you're cutting out here, but what you're saying is a problem everywhere. Can you hear me? Should we take a break?
Okay.
Check 1 2.
Yeah. If you're a US, yeah.
Hey, let's take a 2-minute break. 2-minute break. And I want to come back to what's really interesting. What you're saying is you've got a vacation home, and even at that vacation home, which probably 5% of Peruvians actually have that luxury, they even have to go through the same thing that an average Peruvian has to go through. I'm not going to say a poor Peruvian because it's really an average Peruvian. There's nothing else. There's like, you can't say poor and rich because it's all relative, right? Poor and rich is just relative off of some measure, right? Let's just talk about the average Peruvian.
I mean, let's say
how they live, and then somebody like me or somebody like you, which I don't think is average. I think we're on the fat tails. But that being said, it is what it is. And you even have an issue with your vacation home, and you get to experience the same thing that an average person experiences every day, and it sucks, and it's still an issue. So let's break on that just for 2 minutes, and then I'll be right back. All right, but don't leave. Check, check, 1, 2. We're back on, guys. Okay, so we're waiting on Piero, but overall, it's been really interesting. Sounds like there's a real issue with just electricity and water that the everyday anybody, Peruvian wise, gets to experience. I'll tell you personally, I'm in my own little bubble here with my family, and we always want the best wherever we go. I'm gonna be frank with you. And so I have not experienced that, whether I'm on the beach, staying in a place that's literally on the beach overlooking the ocean. Obviously, it's a place that I'm, a hotel that I'm renting out or whatever. So they have all those amenities. But if you actually own something, some property here, yeah, it makes sense. You don't want to just run electricity or have that hookup, year round when you're only going to be there for a month or two. So yeah, you have to sublet it. I get that. And therefore the infrastructure is not there. What it sounds to me, it's like a Band-Aid. It's like, well, it's not like it's broken, so why fix it? But it's one of these technology infrastructure plays that, it's like the 1970s still, and we're in 2021, right? So get with the program, adopt some technology that's going to make everybody's life easier. It's going to have initial costs, but it'll be eventual cost savings and it'll be affordable for the future. And that's not what's happening right now. And guess what? There'll be economies of scale because, like we said, 70% the average person sees this every day. And guess what? The time that they had to go fetch water or deal with electricity, those costs can be repurposed for more work or more innovation or whatever, right? It's less time off their day, rather than living like they're still in the 70s and 60s. It's crap.
Well,
So,
that's
my sense.
That's correct.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah.
Clear.
Look, that's what you're saying is completely true. How can you invest, let's say Pfizer or even let's say Boston, medical equipment? Okay. Let's say they want to have a facility, inventory or otherwise, and they want to have it like in every country. In Peru, they would look for places in the periphery of Lima, let's say 100 kilometers south or north of Lima, and which is industrial area, which has cheaper land, like in any city in the world. I mean, if you go to Miami, it's same thing. If you go to, LA, same thing, everywhere. But then these guys, Pfizer, Boston Equipment, they go there, they build their facility, and they have to care for a tank, for their own water. They have to have some sort of electrical thing so that they can sort of store electrical power or produce their own power. I mean, that's kind of unacceptable. Now, many people can think that this is a problem of money. Well, I must say that this might be shocking, but Peru has got lots of money. We don't have a money problem. And it's been 30 years that we don't have any money problem. Every year, the government gives back to the state money they didn't manage to spend. We got so much money that we don't know how to spend. So how can you get excess money, cash flow, brilliant situation, as you say, and no infrastructure at all? So our neighbors may start to think that we're stupid. So I don't think it's a stupidity problem necessarily, but it's an institutional problem. And here is where United States can help. But it has got to be an illuminated leadership. I give you an example. We did a brilliant job with the Pan American Games. that was country to country collaboration. It was not the US, it was the UK. It was country to country government contract. They help us build stadiums, and we have been together to the new stadiums. So you must tell me if it's not world class. It is world class. It is not at the same level as the top stadium of the US, of course, but it is pretty close. And they spent less money than planned, and they finished the work 6 months earlier. Zero corruption. Why? Institutional arrangements and software, project management software, which is completely transparent. Everybody can see what everybody's doing, and it's blockchain. So you cannot insert, funny clauses. Everybody can see that. So Vito Corleone, mafia guys, they see that settlement and they say, well, this setting is not for us. Let's go and do our delinquency somewhere else. This place is not for us anymore. So they leave and they go to do their thing somewhere else. So I think that we should look at it in a more institutional basis. Why not start a cooperation with a country in Peru and centralize the infrastructural work in one place, and we make mandatory the project management let's say process.
Yeah,
is completely mandatory. We're going to do it in a different way.
Transparent workflow. Yeah,
totally. And it's a software which is mandatory if the work is more than, let's say, $3 million.
Yeah, it's some monitoring software. Yeah, got
exactly. It. And so, and if we have any trouble, we're going to use, judiciary system, which is different from Peruvian. We can
mitigate,
invent things, create things, arbitrage, whatever it is, a court still in Peru, but it's not going to be possible for anybody to stop the project. Right now, any judge can stop with an acción de amparo. I don't know what is the translation in English, is something that a judge makes, which means that I suspect there's a piece of shit here going on, and I stop the whole thing until things get clarified. So anybody can go and make an accusation based on its own interests, and can pay a judge to make an acción de amparo and stop a project. And this is the reason why things don't go forward in Peru, because everything is somehow totally, you see what I'm saying? Totally, things are made difficult in an artificial way. And we can clean up the whole thing quite quickly if there is political will, which you get from a new election, but also if you have a strong foreign partner who is respected in your country, because if you say so, then your political rival is going to try to crush you. But if you say, I say so, and the United States is a partner, or United Kingdom is a partner, then people have to shut up.
Yeah. And I would say this here, not trying to cut you off. I'm trying to say is, with that, I agree. It sounds like what you're trying to do is just create some standardized platform to do work, right? To have a nice, transparent workflow. And it's really going to be the convincing of an outsider like maybe a US participant or UK or whoever that has some type of credibility, reputation, as well as know-how to collaborate on some common project that can advance Peru, right? And I think that is what needs to be identified is like, where's that short list of ideas in terms of partners, being country partners, as well as projects to implement locally here in the country?
Well, I think if people like me get elected, obviously, that would be something I would look up, because I think that's very, very subtle. It's very, very subtle. If you don't write the rules of the game, you cannot win the game. And basically, the US is not winning, making big inroads in infrastructural work in Peru nor any other places in Latin America. And that's where the big money is. But China is making big inroads. They are building anything you want, electrical facilities, roads, airports, ports, you name it, they can make it. The Chinese seem to be able to make anything under any circumstance, with any budget, in any time, anything they can do. They say yes to everything, and they are masters of corruption, right? So some Peruvians like that. So that's what is happening, that the current rules of the game have been written for China, by China, and they understand that subtlety.
Well, this is what I see. It's pretty obvious. Is they identify the countries that are most vulnerable for their policies, and their policy is just go do it. Don't worry about safety. Don't worry about anything else. Let's just make it happen, and we'll ask for forgiveness later. That's their policy, whether you like it or not. And that's kind of like a startup entrepreneurship policy, right? You fail fast and you add like Uber. We don't care about the taxi drivers. We're gonna go implement it, and we'll get sued later on, but we're just gonna go make it happen and get shot later. But that being said, that's how they globalized Uber, right? With that, the US, unfortunately, now it's 2021. I was just watching something the other day, and I'll give you a quick example of this. We're super regulated. We're all about safety. There's no bullet trains because Amtrak has to be twice as heavy as everything else because they don't want things like Thailand where trains are flying off the rails. But we don't have bullet trains where China does, right? Or the Empire State Building took like a year and a half to build, and now when the Freedom Tower, the World Trade Center, but Freedom Tower, after that got bombed, it took freaking 15 years to build. Where I know in Peru, see, this is interesting. Peru here, I can see, for what it's worth, is a less regulated economy, for what it's worth. And shit gets done quick here. Roads get done very quick. Bridges get built super fast. I'm from Florida, and it's called the orange cone state for a reason, because there's always orange cones and things take forever. So what China has done is identified countries that they see have less regulations, and so they can go implement their policies in those countries, and those countries will be happy because what? They're going to get like a 10x innovation jump because it's China, and China, for what it's worth, has a lot of great things in terms of innovation. But then you get the hooks, and now you're essentially married, enslaved really to China for the next century, because they do things like in 50-year strategic plans, right? Rather than just tactical stuff. So they'll be tactical near term, but strategically, they own you. Think of Iran, right? They went and built a railway that connected China all the way to Iran just so they can get Iran oil. And oh, by the way, they're incentivizing Iran. They're delivering a lot of cheap goods to Iran because all these sanctions that the U.S. put on, right? So they're like, well, here's an easy country, no regulations, And guess what? We need their resources, so we'll work with them. And they're in everywhere else, but we are. They're in Africa. Oh, it's hard. No regulations in Sudan or whatever. We're going to go build some highways. Because guess what? In Africa, infrastructure is horrible. That's the number one thing. And let's go build roads. Latin America, yeah, we need roads. They're going to build them too. So unfortunately, that's what's happening. And the U.S. is like in a straitjacket with all the legislation they've passed. That's literally, put them in a straitjacket, so you can't even do anything, right? And when Trump came in, he cut a lot of that regulation and made the economy a little bit more free flowing. Not even close to what China is, but still, much more free flowing. And now that there's Democratic House and Congress and all that, and president, unfortunately, we're back into that.
What I am not talking about is maybe what you're saying is very, very true. Maybe let me reformulate the idea.
One second. I'm going to
Sure.
finish. So my question to you was, where's the short list of ideas that you would implement, when you get elected as a congressman? And I have a couple ideas, but like, what are some interesting ideas that essentially would instill this collaboration globally, maybe with the US or UK or whoever? What's one?
Well, of course, if you ask me, the short list of ideas that which I want to entice voters with, they have all to do with people participation. In other words, the startup law, the citizen laws. We have a way of making citizen laws in Peru, which is not used because it's too bureaucratic, and we need to streamline that, because the state powers are too slow, and so we need a robust set of laws that are pushed as citizen initiatives quickly. And we have a way to do it. As I said, in the Constitution is allowed, but administratively is too costly, is too bureaucratic. And my third proposal.
Sorry, go ahead. Finish third. Yep.
No. Go ahead.
Can you tell me? With respect to what you think would be a good idea for like specifically like with the US. I'm trying to go more towards like you talked about collaboration, you talked about water, electricity. We need to yeah. How do we go about doing something that would benefit and push forward? Because it sounds like you said the regulation side, you're going to be aware of that, but sounds like it's ready to go. You just need to find the right idea and the right partner to work it. I mean, you just said the Pan American Games was a great example. What else can we do that's something similar, but a little bit more sustainable, right?
Yeah, that is a different arena, as I said, but it's a very exciting one. What I have in mind is not that American companies come to Peru and they bid in the big infrastructure, let's say, projects that we have. We need, last time I checked, there is a deficit of $100 billion infrastructural work. In other words, roads, trains, ports, airports, you name it, in Peru, internet, all that. So $100 billion is peanuts in the US, but it's a lot of money here. And so I don't think that American companies get too excited about a $100 billion market, which is for the whole of infrastructure.
What's the GDP of Peru?
$200 billion.
Oh, so it's half the GDP.
Yeah, exactly. So we could really have the strongest performing economy in the whole world in terms of indicators, just by taking seriously the challenge of building infrastructure. You just put Peru to work in what we need to do, water, etc., 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 and we just get so much work that we will have to open our borders for immigrant workers, and they will all have good quality work. So having said that, we don't do that because we don't have the institutional settings to tackle such a challenge. We had it in the time of the Incas. That's obvious because we built the Japajñán. We had it in the time of the Viceroyalty of Peru because it's clear, because we built so many things. And in the early years of our country, we had the first, railroad of Latin America in Peru. We had the first, steamships in Peru. We had the first electrical lightning system in Latin America, in Peru. So we were the first in everything. And then we lost momentum. So we have to recoup that. So I'm saying that we need momentum? A partner like, well, we have to make another program to talk about that.
Okay.
But that is, to cut the long story short, it is, I would say, there is some self-destructive gene in the cultural setting of Peru. And it was busy at work for about 80 years, in which we happily and merrily were so good at destroying ourselves and annihilating our own selves. I think we share that with countries like China. They do that in a bigger scale, of course, but we have done that a couple of times. So that's my take at that. But having said that, we need know-how, institutional know-how from a big partner. And that could be the USA. That would be our natural partner. So anytime we have a big mega project, we should have some sort of office. As a congressman, it's an idea that I would like to develop, and maybe you can help me. We should have a big office. What am I going to
do for you? What would I do for you or for the Congress?
Well, I think out of the box.
Say you're elected tomorrow, April 11th. Piero's elected. Okay, Lansing, what's Lansing going to do? I'm just sitting here with the surfboard and a TV with the Peru flag. What am I going to do?
Well, first of all, you have to take a good artisan beer, okay, for us to enjoy it during the breaks of the work. That's the first thing you would do.
You guys have beer
during very lunch? Good
you go back and vote on whatever legislation?
That's right. I don't know if you
get to share now. You're going to share the same glass. You guys are going to pass around the same glass, in Congress.
Yeah,
like the Peruano style.
That's right. So, well, maybe people don't know that, but Lansing, you make very good beer, and that's first thing that we would do. But more seriously, I do believe that the whole process of mega infrastructural projects in Peru should be looked up systemically. We should make a completely different process. We should make a ministry that centralizes the whole work, a ministry with only 150 people there, no more than that, and they should only do supervision and management and project management work. That's it. And they should have a directory and where we have partners and advisors, an advisory committee. And so that's where we get partners where people can call what we need to do is that to have the same framework kind of infrastructural work in Peru, and to conceive the mega work that the different ministries do as a whole thing, not that anybody does their own thing. For example, water infrastructure, roads, um, public housing. Those are different ministries in Peru, but they all have in common that you need to build a lot of things with a big budget, very complex projects, and you need to do it quickly and transparent. So the Ministry of Public Works would do that, would ensure that, but they will streamline things. Today, there are many ways to stop a mega project in Peru. And the reason is that there's too much corruption.
Yeah.
Correct?
Well, I would say
And
this. I mean,
that's the excuse.
well, here's
That's the
this is the problem with countries that have a lot of natural resources, right? It's a term called Dutch disease, and I think the biggest natural resource you guys have is dealing with mining, right? A lot of mining companies here, so maybe it's gold, maybe it's silver, maybe it's copper, maybe it's whatever, but mining minerals. And so the government focuses on that because that's the main export. And unfortunately, what happens, the Dutch disease is that as the government focuses all on that resource, it actually makes everything else more expensive because there's less investment in all the other craft, whether it's, handmade things or this and that. And so it makes those products more expensive because there's less demand locally, to be honest. And everybody's focused on exporting minerals to where they don't want to buy it from Peru. They want to buy it from China or somewhere else. So that creates this Dutch disease effect because you have all these great natural resources. So you need to focus on who the corporations are that are making all the money. Like, you got Nexa, Pacas Mayo, you got all these other corporations that are really driving, the perception of Peru in terms of this Dutch disease. And how do you convert that from exporting all this mineral and obviously repurposing some of that to make infrastructure, right? Like you're saying, but also try to focus some more of the budget, because I'm sure a lot of the budget goes to them, into like concessions for land or whatever it is. Focus the budget in terms of all the other things you're talking about, entrepreneurship. Like mining companies do not care about entrepreneurship. They've been around forever. A lot of those guys stole from the Incas, from the gold, whatever it is. They're like Spaniard families. And so with that, like, they're not going to care about that. And guess what? They're going to lobby the politicians to make sure that they get the nice contracts and concessions and budget. Your big thing is how to take some of that pie and reposition it for entrepreneurship that's completely different than just mining, right? There's so much else out there, and it could be entrepreneurship in infrastructure in different ways. All they're doing is loading ships and sending it to China or sending it to the US or whatever, right? That's not going to make, that's what Peru lives off right now, because that's where the GDP is coming from. And inflation is making it even worse. So they're actually making more money now, right? So with that, that's going to be the big challenge, is how do you take some of the corporate lobbyists in the mining community and repurpose it for innovation locally? I'm interested in that, to be honest. And maybe make concessions for other types of projects rather than just these corporations, right? That take all the land and use it up, right? Whether it's Repsol or Pacas Mayo or whatever. That's my 2 cents. I see that as like, the gorilla. It's the elephant in the room, to be honest. You could talk all this entrepreneurship, but that's the elephant in the room. How do you go about dealing with that at the same time? Granted, they're paying taxes and doing all that, but they're still going to be in the front of the line. They have their own line. They have their own VIP rope line, and then everybody else is waiting. And they're the business class when they go to the airport. They get served first, and then all the economy people, until the line's finished, then they show up. So How do you go about having only one line, and get rid of the VIP line?
Well, the thing is that the mining companies and the oil companies, this is not an area where I have been following very, very closely as other people have, but I seem to have observed in, going around the world that they are the same everywhere. In other words, a mining company in Pennsylvania, they will be fracking the land, and the only reason they would stop doing that, or they would do that with a little bit more, let's say, reflection and regulation, is because an external pressure is built upon them. And that external pressure comes from two sources. One is the state, and the other one is the organized community. And they are both sides of the same coin, which is the other people who live in the area. They say to the company, be careful, what you're doing here can fuck us all. And second, the money that you make here, you should not be getting all the money. You have to share. So those are the two challenges, right? How to do that, respecting the fact that other people live in the area. And secondly, so that's the externalities issue. And secondly, how to share the pie.
Yeah.
Now, in Peru, so in Norway, they are also a raw material economy because they have a lot of mining and a lot of oil, and they resolve the problem very efficiently because the state there, has taken the view of the people. And so the company is a state company, Statoil, for example, and the state-owned company has got a social purpose, not a stock market purpose. They still make a lot of money.
They just did that with they just did that with Petrobras, right, in Brazil, where they just got the CEO and now they're making it a state company, which is weird, but okay.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but Petrobras is quite the same because Petrobras revenues are bigger than the whole GDP of Peru, and Petrobras means that Brazil can have a decent claim to be a world power still, because they have Petrobras. They have independent technology for self-sufficiency in energy. And upstream, downstream oil is also state-owned in Italy, in France, in Spain, in the UK, and we can go on. And therefore, either you natural resources, either you do it with the state, which is the obvious way to do it, right? Because the natural resources are natural. They are not, private, and they should be for the people. So the natural way to do it should be that the state takes care of that, and they do it with a social purpose, and they do it efficiently and transparently. That having said, you need many sets of assumptions to be in place for that to happen in a society. And let's not forget that the countries that I have mentioned are countries that have gotten where they are after 5,000 years of continuous wars and destruction. So basically, Europe has been the place in the world, with the possible exception of China, where more people have been killed by others. So after First World War, Second World War, having killed them as a sportsmanship for 5,000 years, they finally managed to create their states, which work. And even some people would dispute that. Some Europeans would tell me, you are wrong, they don't work. But from a perspective of a Peruvian, they work. United States, they fast-tracked 5,000 years of evolution in 200 years.
And so it's a special case. But in the United States, what you have is a very, let's say, robust political system, which reflects pretty well the will of the people, except for some periods where funny things happen, as you know, very well know, things that we cannot understand fully. But apart from that, the system seems to work well. So Peru, what should we do in Peru? In Peru, we have got not the best of both worlds, but a little bit of the worst of both worlds, because we have fast-tracked evolution, because we are also a young independent republic, like the US. We have got more or less the same age. But here, we have got a more complex, cultural thing, ancestral cultures that are very robust, and they participate in all levels of the states, and they live precisely in the areas where natural resources are concentrated. So how should we deal with that? Because also the Peruvian Republican state has not been accepted yet by all Peruvians. And quite frankly, the areas where the people live close to natural resources are precisely the areas where the Peruvian state has not been fully accepted. They still think about reivindication. They still think that this state belongs to the descendants of the Spaniards who lied to them. And of course, there's a lot of truth in that thing, as you well know. So it's more complex here. So what is the way should we proceed in the next 5 to 10 years? In my opinion, what we should do is to give power to the communities that live close to natural resources. I don't mean political power, I mean education. I mean, these guys should be able to do startups the way they want. We should bring those tools to them very, very quickly. Because if they want to produce agricultural products, just to name an area, they could do it and export those directly through the digital platforms and get paid. So imagine many communities like that in the Andean regions of Peru. They would be the biggest and the most important wall against the natural depredation that private companies do in their nature. And it's not just private companies coming from Lima, it's also private companies coming from their own communities, because let's not forget that informal mining is probably as big or bigger than formal mining in Peru. In other words, the multinational companies that produce gold in Peru probably are outproduced by the informal, smaller mining companies that produce gold in Madre de Dios, for example. And guess who is buying that gold? The Chinese and the Indians. They are buying it. I don't know how they take it out, but they take it out somehow of Peru. And of course, all that we should be take into consideration when we talk about that problem in Peru, that mining is getting democratized and not in the best of ways, because the informal mining companies do not have the same motivation to follow environmental regulations than mining companies.
Yeah, I'm very upset because I went to Puerto Maldonado and I saw what was going on there and also heard stories. It's sickening to me in terms of the level of pollution that community now sees and the side effects that'll happen for years on end. I mean, think about mercury. Like all it takes is one fish, and then you eat the fish and then you have a kid, or that fish eats another fish, and then it just, propagates super quick in terms of the pollution there. So it's super sad to see that, the illegal mining, and unfortunately it's destroyed the small economics there, right? No one's eating fish there because they're scared. Second, there's always side effects that are going to happen with all the people in the community there, unfortunately, whether it's through water or whatever. It's a very sad thing. That's actually to me, I think it's a crisis. It's a national disaster right now. It's a humanitarian crisis, and it's just as much as what's happening. It's way more than what's happening at the border of Mexico and the U.S. It's like that's something that should be a focal point, like hardcore, for a while within the political base.
Well, Madre de Dios has got out of control from the Peruvian authorities. Basically, that's hell on earth, and it's like they were an independent republic.
I'm talking about Puerto Maldonado, where I flew
Yeah.
in. That is a humanitarian crisis. People don't know what's going on there, and it's the river that connects everything, right? Well, guess what? That river is contaminated, and now people live off that river, right? So it's a super sad environment. That's a bad. Excuse me.
Cheers.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very sad situation. All the political representatives that come from that region in Peru, Madre de Dios, are financed by the gold mafia.
Yeah, and so it's way worse than what you think. We looked at maps where it showed the illegal mining. Imagine all the leaching that goes into the environment there, right? So it's not just the water and the fish; it's the monkeys, and that place is very ripe with slugs and everything, right? Like there's so much environmental diversity now, but later on it's going to be mutated and it's going to be a bad thing. And guess what? Some of those community members come to Lima because they need to work, and then they connect with other people, and it's transferred here, right? So it's a bad situation.
It's a bad situation, and I believe that in order to end that, we would need a kind of government in Peru that we don't have, and that is difficult to have, which is it would be a government of an authoritarian nature, because Peru has a very fragile democratic structure. If a number of factors coincide, the whole system shows its fragility and instability, and they are unlikely factors. But when those stars align, then you got chronic instability, which is unfortunately what we have now.
Yeah.
And we have had 5 presidents in 5 years, and that is not good. But the system does allow for some sort of escape, to escape from that stalemate. But in order to do that, you will need another set of fortunate circumstances to happen, which is to have a good party, a good leader, and a set of people who have a vision, who share a strong vision. Because you need a very authoritarian state in Peru that coincides with a very authoritarian state in Brazil. And I guess that in a couple of weeks, you can clean the whole thing up forever and ever. But what you need to do is the intervention of the armies. And in today's world, there are too many cameras on you, and many institutions around the world would be mentioning the word genocide and protecting the criminals, and they would take your government and they would try to do regime change, because the status quo benefits a lot of people. It's a lot of hypocrisy in the system. And so one has to move carefully in such world, because there's a lot of money which a lot of people are receiving, and that's why we live in a, you know, world which has got some mercury rivers instead of, you know, natural rivers. But obviously the situation is very close to you know, exploding. uh, sometime, maybe not too far from now, you know, people are going to start connecting the dots, and once that happens, they are going to be very angry.
Hey, Dami, let's take a 5-minute break, okay? 5-minute break.
Yeah, okay.
5 minutes. Okay.
Maybe not too far from now.
Check, check, 1, 2, I'm back. And we're talking about essentially a lot of globalization with Peru, but I have a couple ideas. I want to bounce them off you. And this might be interesting with the infrastructure play. Okay. So the infrastructure play that I think would be interesting that would do two things. It'd be dual purpose. One, it'll obviously align to the typical infrastructure of maybe a unique environment, a unique setting, but also it aligns to the globalization, collaborating with other entities, other countries, and also hits the entrepreneurship innovation part, right? Something new, something fresh. Puts Peru on the map in terms of like a focal point of the conversation. And my thought is this: I'd like to see Peru work some type of partnership with NASA. What do I mean by that? I mean,
I think that's a Lansing idea. I want to hear more about that. What you have in mind exactly?
yeah. So NASA is an organization that essentially is a global organization that connects countries together, right? On a theme, on an idea that's bigger than just this earth, right? It's outside of the world. And with that, what I'm trying to say is that it allows the mentality part to really just get away from local things or even international global things and say, hey, we're going to work on a project that's bigger than us. There's a bigger purpose, which is for our kids, for the future, for the next 10, 15, 30 years out, 50 years out. But Peru is the most, I think, biodiverse country in the world. More importantly, the places I've been to kind of look like Mars, all right? And I know there are certain minerals and certain chemicals that are actually very similar to like Yellowstone and Old Faithful, right? There's certain types of molecules and certain types of chemicals that actually can survive at very high, like certain bacteria can survive at very high heat, and they're called exothermal, whatever, you know, those type of organisms, and they haven't even been touched. So my thought is this: allow PIERO, the next congressman, to promote a project that will ask for a concession for a certain place that no one is doing anything in, which is the desert in Peru that has these exothermal organisms there too. And we're going to create a community that's going to simulate what the next community will look like in Mars. And then we're going to get Elon Musk here in Peru. We're going to get all the SpaceX and everybody else and have a powwow, essentially a meeting, a conference, a congress is like you guys like to call. And we're going to figure out a way to collaborate and simulate what it'll be like to live in Mars. While we do that, we're going to realize that, guess what? We're going to need water. We're going to need electricity. And for what it's worth, unfortunately, the average Peruvian actually lives on Mars now, and it sucks. Meaning they don't have a grid. They don't have electricity that's sustainable. They don't have water that's sustainable. It costs too much. So all the interesting things you'll find out from this community collaboration, you can just repurpose in Peru with pretty much the average Peruvian, 70%, like you said. So we're going to take all the goodness that comes out of the project, repurpose it in all the rest of the 100 kilometers that lives around us, the technology. At the same time, start working a plan for the next 5-10 years to implement when we get to Mars. So that's my NASA idea. I think it's fantastic, and no one else in the world can do this but Peru.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I think I really like that. Of course,
Yeah.
you must know. And I think you
You take
already
that,
know.
run with it.
Yeah, I think you already know, Lanson, that I got 3 proposals that I am communicating to the voters, and you just heard 2 of them, which is the the citizen laws and the startup law. And now the third proposal means that we should, in Peru, promote more natural and also cultural areas. We should promote them as protected areas in a more modern way. What do I mean by that? I have observed around the world that there are many protected areas which are not kept as isolated sanctuaries. An isolated sanctuary basically is a cost center for the state. But if you promote it as a place where certain activities take place, certain entrepreneurial activities take place, then the owners and the members of those organizations, of those startups, entrepreneurship activities, they themselves will take care of the place, because you will promote activities which are not like mining, but activities that flourish just by taking care of the environment. So taking care of the environment becomes their product, their service. And so basically it becomes a profit center for the state, not a cost center. And I hadn't realized until you mentioned this idea that research and investigation should be one of those activities. I was focused on ecotourism and cultural tourism, which is an area, as you know, where I have certain experience with Andean lodges, where we turned the Ausangate into a protected area for high altitude ecotourism. And so the communities own the company and they are taking care of that environment. And but I didn't realize, because of course there is a pilot which I have in mind when I'm talking about protected natural areas, modern way, which is the Nazca dorsal, la dorsal de Nazca. I am certain that you know what I'm talking about. The dorsal de Nazca means that you have the Andean Cordillera, but what the gringos, you discovered with your technology, was that under the water, in front of the Nazca Desert, there is a second Cordillera, which is bigger than the other one. So under the sea, there are Cordillera, which is 3,000, 5,000 meter peaks, but it's all covered by water. And that Cordillera goes from the Nazca all the way to Pascua Island, where the Chileans have already created the largest, maritime natural protected area in the world. So what I'm proposing is that we make a whole thing. We take some part of the desert, because that's part of the ecosystem, the desert, and from Chira and San Lorenzo Island, all the way to Pisco, Paracas, and the Dorsal de Nazca is 160,000 square miles. That would be the second or the third biggest in the world, but the most important one, because the exothermal sources of life that you're talking about, NASA,
I know they're there.
NASA has identified that the original ones probably are the ones under Nazca. So we are sitting on top of the origin of life in the planet, and that's quite awesome and sacred. So I was thinking about reviving the whole area. We should do ecotourism based on the ancestral navigational technique, which is the balsa. And as you know, we have the balsa project, and we are planning to do trips, go back and forth to Polynesia, to Tehuantepec in Mexico with the balsa, with the Peruvian balsa. And I'm gonna let you know when we're looking for a crew, okay? But that would be to concite the world attention on this balsa and to make ecotourism with all the artisan fishing communities that are ancestral, as they are in the coastal regions of Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia. So basically, that would be a big sort of revival of ecotourism there, employ a lot of people. But I had realized, you mentioned that of course we should turn that into the biggest research and investigation area for colonizing other planets in the whole world, and Elon Musk should come here. I mean, what is Elon Musk doing in California? I mean, he should be, looking under the water in Nazca to understand what we need to do to turn the water in Mars into
so his whole thing is about getting there, right? And I respect him for that. I'll be the guy that figures out how to live there, how to be there and work from there. You know what I'm saying? And so we can work together. I can call up Elon and say, hey, you're going to create a spaceship to get there, right? That's great. Now, for the next 5-10 years, we're going to create a team that's going to figure out how to live there when we get there. And we can simulate that, not in a biosphere and not in any of that crap. We're going to simulate it in a very biodiverse place that can create an infrastructure. And guess what? This infrastructure that we create, we can actually repurpose in our own communities now, right? Like we just talked about, the average person in Peru, right? And some of those things could be some green shoots or offshoots that literally could be positive externalities that could literally be implemented in your own community now, sooner or later, rather than waiting to get to Mars, right? But you can work a plan towards that. And it'd be great for the government for Peru because they can create concessions to do that. It'll create a great spotlight in Peru in terms of know-how. It'll motivate any young Peruvian that wants to get into science and technology to be like, hey, I have this going on in my backyard. That's great, because to be honest, I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen much innovation out of here, and I've been to a lot of the universities. So this will be a catalyst for them to think about, hey, you know what? I can do it here because it's in my backyard. So now that they go there, they're providing the resources. Yeah, they may not be the top scientists to kind of create whatever for now, but once they learn the tools and the know-how, they can apply their own creativity later on and maybe create something new. And who knows, you might see some patents come out of Peru, you never have seen because of the collaboration. It's a win-win for everybody.
I think it's a great idea. I think we should try to
and also strengthen the U.S.-Peru relationship. China is a piece of crap where they're just trying to build roads and steal and make Peru enslaved. So like now you can create this kind of, NATO collaboration where it's like, okay, everybody's going to work, from people from Japan. It doesn't matter. They just all show up in this one place and they simulate what's going to look like in Mars. Because I'll be honest, it looks like Mars over there. So why not, make it happen? And there's a lot of land. And by the way, there's a great know-how here. Mining. I just said the biggest infrastructure, the biggest corporate powerhouse in the Peru is mining. Well, they have the best know-how. They have the best science and tools to investigate minerals and geology, right? Well, now you get to use those companies to be a part of the project, right? In terms of research and science. And you're doing a lot of the mining that you would do in Mars. And some of those companies could be partners with SpaceX. It's a win-win.
I think it's a win-win. I even think that there is some fortunate coordinates that happen here in the Nazca area, where you can launch, spacecrafts from here and in a favorable sort of cosmic condition.
I heard that too. I've heard that in terms of elevation, it's actually reasonable. It could be a launch pad. It could be the next Kennedy Space Center in Latin America down here.
Well, that's
I don't mind building too, because I've seen a lot of launches from there in Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral, and I don't see why you couldn't do that. And guess what? With the Peruvian, the way you guys build here, it can be done so quick. Like that's another thing that's going for you is the ability to implement the project and make it quickly, construct the infrastructure quickly, and start working, and collaborating.
well, the key for that.
That could be a long-term goal. Like, okay, you create a near-term goal is we're going to simulate Mars. We're going to do a lot of cool testing with biodiversity, with all these different widgets that you bring down and test. Be like a test center, be a test site. That's what it is. We're not going to create anything new. We're just going to create an environment for you to test, right? And do research. And then in addition to that, long-term is, hey, while you're down here, it looks like the elevation's reasonable. Why don't we create another Cape Canaveral? Because Cape Canaveral might be overtaxed because of all these satellite companies that want to be launched every day, that we can have another location to launch in the Americas.
Well,
Be like a Pacific Alliance, collaboration or something.
I think that's an incredibly interesting idea. I really get excited by that. I mean,
well, I'll tell you, Piero, I come with big ideas. I don't come with small ideas. I don't come with like a coffee shop idea. I come with like really big ideas. And so my question to you is, you're a smart guy. You obviously got warden certificates behind you. And I don't know how many Peruvian warden people are there, to be honest. I met a couple people from Colombia, they're charter holders, all that good stuff. Yeah. But you seem like you're like the 1%er of educated people here. Can you come to me with a plan? Like I just gave you the idea, right? And that took me a lot to think about, yeah, I'm just been thinking about what you've been saying with infrastructure. And that's what I do. I come with great ideas, but you need to come to me with a real solid, like what is the tactical what's the tactical strategy right now in terms of who you'll connect with politically and internally? And then I have contacts, like I could connect with, from my network with Lockheed Martin or whatever else. I eventually probably get talking with SpaceX or Tesla. Not to say I talked to Elon, but one of those guys. But I need backing. I need the business case here done first, right? Before I go have those conversations that could be happening. And I'm confident that I can make those connections on my terms, but I need you to motivate me to do that. That make sense?
well, I thought you were motivating me already. That's what actually is happening, because what you're talking about is very interesting, and of course one needs to plan. And what I propose to you is that let me win this election, and I hope and I trust we can get there, and then let's think about it together, because one thing that you do in those positions, like Congress in any country which is democratic, is that you can really do certain studies. And I think that idea that you're talking about, it fits with a very big, huge gap that we have in Peru right now. And that is the space investigation. And the idea that you're mentioning, it connects with Earth investigation too. So it captures the two, and that's fantastic. And Nazca is, of course, the place where you have the lines of Nazca. People still don't know what the hell are those lines, but myself and many others believe that they had some sort of cosmic research going on in Nazca. And that is the way they sort of recorded what they found in the lines of Nazca, because of course the ancient Peruvians, they already knew that was a special place to gaze at the stars in search for understanding. down here on Earth. And they did that. They managed to do that. Of course, it's obvious that they knew how to fly somehow. And those are things that are so fantastic, that so wonderful, that today's Peruvians and today's people don't even have the strength to believe those things that are obvious. And so they say it's impossible. But what that means is that we did do that, what you're saying, before the Spaniards came, and still we did that during the Viceroyalty, because all the expeditions, you know, that all the expeditions that the Spanish Empire made to chart the Far East came from Peru. In Callao, there was a big port, and we had a center for maritime investigation. And Pedro y Gamboa, he charted the whole of the South America to Patagonia. And Mendieta, Alvaro Mendieta, charted all the way to Philippines and China. So all Polynesia has got, all those islands have got Spanish names. And then Alonso de Cuadra charted every way up. And unfortunately, I must tell you that Alaska and Vancouver, they had Spanish names before, and those names were given by a navigator who was born in Lima. De Cuadra was his name. He went all the way up to Alaska, and he found no Americans there. He found Russians, and in Vancouver, he only found Indians. And then he went back to Lima. So all that existed, and so we were a center for that investigation, but not anymore. So that is a big gap. We should have national policy there. So what you're talking about is more than a stupid project of two companies. This is national policy that you're talking about. So we should have a national agency, you know, looking at that thing, and we should put that agency in Nazca, and we should start a research center there and partner with all those wonderful organizations you're talking about, NASA, you know, SpaceX, and they all would very happily come and take a look at what's under the sea, and we should do it all together, I think, because the benefits are for mankind.
Yeah, I mean, remember I told you about, there's an idea that I had with Blueprint Bio, right? And I talked about leveraging not biopiracy, but I don't know what the better word is called, but bio like bio project or bio philanthropy, something about not piracy of bio, but having the bio environment enable the innovation, you know, that can come out of it. Because I actually I know, you know, the new petroleum is actually synthetic biology, which essentially is synthesizing nature and then replicating it in a different manufacturing process. And that's what's happening now. There's companies that do that, right? And it's getting much bigger and bigger. Like even the public markets and the stock market are all about, you know, CRISPR and all the different new, you know, genetic biology type trends. So you can actually piggyback on that and say, okay, Blueprint Bio is gonna leverage the biodiversity of the Amazon in Peru. We're gonna synthesize it, take any goodness out of it, and then we're gonna replicate it and implement it in our Mars environment in Peru. What better project is that, where I actually go synthesize something? I don't kill the environment, but I just synthesize it. I replicate and I figure out a way to recreate it in a place that doesn't exist right now, which is this Mars biosphere. Figure out a way to say, okay, I've captured some type of interesting chemical or interesting food ingredient, and I've created some yeast, and it's actually propagating and grown somewhere else, and we've tested it and implemented it, and it works. And now you're ready to go to Mars, and so you can say, okay, we're going to have our library of all these different biosynthesized things that we did in Peru or other places all over, because we have this archive. And then we're going to say, okay, when we get to Mars, we're just going to synthetically manufacture these new products. And we've tested it and validated it before we even get to Mars. That's kick ass. Now I'm using both the jungle and I'm using the desert. And guess what? The next civilization for the next 1,500 years is going to live off that idea. And it'll be Blueprint Bio. Blueprint Bio should be as big as SpaceX. I want Blueprint Bio to be as big as SpaceX, if not bigger, because Blueprint Bio is actually going to be implementing, and transferring, repurposing all the library of genetic code that the Earth has into Mars.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think I understand the power of this idea. Because
and maybe one simple thing is this: you have the Mars implementation with what we talked about earlier, and this is just more of like pharmacology. Okay, maybe you need to create some new drugs that allow you to live longer in Mars or whatever it is, right? But now you're synthesizing that, or maybe you're synthesizing materials, but it's biomimetic, right? You're using nature to create new things that don't have to use petroleum. They use a different way of processing it and manufacturing it, which you can bring those chemicals to Mars and hopefully replicate them when you're there.
That's a very interesting idea. So it's funny because you were asking me why would I have you in my team if I'm elected, and now I hope that is quite obvious. The answer is quite obvious because you already provided it. I think one needs to think out of the box and project things forward, because people expect that from their leaders. And if you are enjoying the trust of the people and people vote for you and you get elected, the least you can do, apart from resolving the immediate problems, which is what we've been talking about, you have to plant the seeds for the future. But the future is already here. That's the thing. The thing is, the future is not the future as people think the future is something that hasn't happened. That's not the future. That's some sort of illusion, idea, sort of fantasy. That's not the future. The future is what is already here but hasn't caused an impact yet. And I think we should work with that. And the idea that I had and the idea that you have, I think are two coins of the same two sets of the same coin. I'm getting a phone call from a political party here. Just a second.
Okay,
Just a second.
take a break. Take a break. 5-minute break. Okay, I'm back. Take your time, Piero. Check, check, 1, 2.
So, my friend, we are back here, and yeah, let's close the this very interesting conversation. You know, political campaigns are hectic, and things happen, and we're in the last week of the campaign, and so all parties take advantage of the quarantine to plan for assault what we are doing. And so the next week is going to be ferocious. And I think the guys who get stronger, like in the boxing contest, right? Which you are very good at, those contact sports, Lansen. And you know that the last minute is decisive, right? So if you
Yeah.
are
Tell me
stronger
about
mentally, physically,
tell me about your election process in terms of the candidates that you have, or do you have some of the same competitors in the same group right now, or are you the leading candidate, you know, for your district? Like, tell me about that. And debates. Are you debating anybody?
well, we are different um, different election system than United States. Is less close to the people. Like I'm not running for my district where I live in. I'm running for the whole city, and so some people know me already, and some people don't know me. That's the way I started, and the challenge was to get to be known by as many people as possible in Lima, so they know my name, my number, who am I, and why am I, you know, candidate. And we have had a very sort of social networks based campaign. I have been out there walking the streets as well, but the main thing has been the social networks. Because of quarantine, 80% of the electors in Lima, they have they are in Facebook. So Facebook has been an important part of my campaign, and I've been throwing there some my ideas, videos. Some of them I think you like them, uh, and um, and some of them had become viral within the community of voters, right? And I'm very happy so far by the way we have carried out our campaign. I have been through 3 or 4 debates with other guys, and I think I have easily beat them. But it doesn't guarantee anything in such an environment, because people who have made up their minds, research show that no matter what happens, even if you beat the crap out of their candidate, they still vote for him or her, because the decision is emotional rather than logical. But the thing is that there are 30 to 50% of undecided voters, and I think all my curves are up in terms of views. All my advertisements and my videos are more and more viewed. I think we did a pretty good work, and of course, I think if we had done all what we wanted, that would be even stronger. But there's a lot of competitions for the media, and the media is a monopoly in Peru, and it's already politically biased. So it's difficult to get in there, especially when you are new. But as you know, we don't care much about that, and we just go for it anyway, because I think we can beat them, and we will beat them. And I think every challenge is a great opportunity. I love competition, and if it was easy, it wouldn't interest me. So it's very, very exciting all what we have been doing. And right now, I'm in the position that I can say that we have had some impact in the social networks, and we have done that in a very creative basis. The communications, and I only have a family team. I haven't had any other sort of very big teams and very big money coming into my campaign. And so I think in terms of what we have achieved or what we have invested, probably I'm the number one in terms of productivity in my whole list of candidates. And I think people have started to notice that. Now, whether that is enough to get elected or not, well, we will figure that out in 11th of April. But in any case, I'm very, very enjoying every minute of this, because every minute I have the dream alive, and there is nothing around me that suggests to me that my dream is not realizable. Quite the contrary. So I'm enjoying every minute of it, and I think I'm getting into this last week in perfect shape, physically, mentally, verbally, and every other way. And so every exposure I have in the media, I sort of really, really enjoy it, right?
Yep.
Other people get tired to the end, but I think that also reflects their own strategy, right? Because it's it's a very energy consuming thing. So this has to be, your energy has to be carefully planned, so that you get in the end and you beat the crap out of anybody who stands, against you in the last round. You sort of, you send them to the count. And that's what I'm planning to do, and that's what I'm looking forward to do in the last week of the campaign.
Nice. Tell me about, here's the last question I have for you. Tell me about the presidency. What's going on with this election? Looks like all of them are really close. Who are you going for?
Well, I think there are two strong candidates for the president. I heard that you feel that Fujimori has got a.
I don't like that. Okay, I said unfortunately, but I just see her perception wise, because she has that name Fujimori. I don't see any. I just didn't get the vibe from any other candidate. Honestly, I didn't get any other vibe from any other candidate. And so, if that's not the case, she's gonna go off of her name, and she can spin the narrative very simply. Unfortunately, because I think it'll be a big mistake if that happens if she gets elected. But she might have real potential. You gotta watch out.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and you're absolutely right, because every candidate is a possible winner. You must realize that in Peru is the same as in the United States, as anywhere. Every candidate is a possible winner, but in the United States, you get very, very clear who can win, a month or two before. Here it's a day or two before, so it's a lot more dramatic. So what you're saying is perfectly true. Now, I think that this election is extremely clear. There is let's say, a block of candidates who are financed from the same source, which is the same source that finances the media monopoly. And those candidates are basically financed by the industrial dominant industrial groups of Peru, which are 4 to 5. They all have their own, let's say, industry association, and they finance candidates like Johnny Lescano, Forsyth, Keiko Fujimori, and And there's even this guy Julio Guzman. They all financed by the same source. They are clowns of the same circus owner. And so no matter who wins there, you know who is going to govern you. They are going to govern you is the same ones that are on power
Unfortunately,
today.
what I see is less caliber than what we already had the past 4 years or 2 years.
Well, that let's call these people sort of the Vizcarra socialist bloc, which is financed by the media controlled, and candidates have been knocked down one after the other. They have self-destructed. Hernando de Soto, all these people have self-destructed in the debates.
Okay. You there? Check, check, 1, 2. Check, check. 1, 2. We lost Piero. Okay, guys. We're in this chat, but thanks for tuning in. Peace.